What's good, everyone? OJ here. Welcome back to another video. And it seems like there's quite a bit of stuff that's going on in the gaming industry that I wanted to talk about. We have some rumors with Sony potentially buying Square Enix. We have some nice Nintendo Switch big RPG sales that are going down, and also something that kind of irks me about what Reggie has said and the attitude that was taken during some of the stuff that happened when Reggie Fils-Aime was president of Nintendo. And we're going to go ahead and get into all of that. But before we do, please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, and click that notification bell to get my videos first. And please make sure you drop a comment below on any of the topics before you leave. Now, let's go ahead and get into this here, starting off with the rumors that apparently Sony is looking into or will be buying Square Enix, and there's been a lot of talk on this already, and I don't want to rehash the talking points that so many people have put out there, but I wanted to give my honest opinion and evaluation on if this thing is actually going to happen or not, because this is spreading like wildfire on Twitter and also on other forms of social media. Now, recently, Greg Miller spoke about how he's heard some rumors about Sony potentially buying Square Enix, that he's heard multiple sources of this. Now, essentially, Greg Miller said something to the lines of, he went on to note that the information he was given wasn't explicit, meaning he wasn't sure if the whispers he had heard referred to Square Enix's Western studios or the Japanese side of the publisher. So it seems like there's just a lot of confusion on exactly what he's heard or what he's trying to say, or maybe he didn't want to out one of his sources after he said something, but something tells me that there's too much, I would say, murkiness behind this for me to take it as anything that could be possible like immediately. Now, is Sony maybe looking into it? Did they maybe inquire about it? Yeah, sure, that's a possibility. Anybody can inquire and kind of see, but is something actually going to happen based off of what was said here? I'm not so sure about that. I don't think that there's some type of deal already in place and it's happening and then he's heard it and now he's reporting on it. I think that there was maybe a murmur of somewhere, somebody at Square Enix maybe said something. I'm not really sure, but I don't know if this is a concrete type of thing. Now, I know a lot of you guys are asking, well, let's just say hypothetically it does happen. What would happen to a lot of the cool RPGs that Nintendo fans enjoy? Well, Nate from Direct Feed Games also put out a little bit in terms of his thoughts, and he feels that if this was to happen, it would be very much like the Bungie deal, where they would keep their independence and be able to make games on different platforms, but they would just be wholly owned by Sony. So I think that if Sony did purchase Square Enix, maybe that would happen. So the games like the Bravely Defaults and the Triangle Strategies and the Octopath Travelers can still release on multiple platforms if they were going to come out. They can still release on PC, PlayStation, Nintendo, whatever the case is. So I think that could be the outcome of it, and that would probably be the best case scenario if that does happen. Now, they can go completely the other way. The deal might not be for that, and a lot of that stuff could be lost. But for right now, I'm taking this as a very loose rumor, and I wanted to talk about it just because I've seen so many people discuss it and so many people get worried or this and that. And I apologize for people that saw my first tweet. I ended up deleting it and kind of talking about it in more of a way that was definitely rumor-ish, because the way that I worded it kind of sounded like I was trying to say that it's a confirmed thing or it's like almost a done deal. It could be misinterpreted that way, and I don't want anybody to interpret it that way. So I'm sorry about that, but we'll see what happens going forward in the future. My own personal thought is that I don't want to see every single company being acquired by like the big three. I think that's ridiculous. I think that Microsoft obviously has started somewhat of a trend, but then again, I mean, even before that, you have Tencent and you have Embracer Group, a lot of these other entities that are buying up everything, and I'm just not a huge fan of it, but that's capitalism, that's the business, and this type of stuff is going to be happening. Now, if you haven't seen my recent video on how Nintendo's preparing for this type of stuff, please make sure you check it out. There'll be a link in the description below. But what are your thoughts on all of this? Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. All right, and moving on to the next topic here, we have a big Bandai Namco RPG and anime sale going down right now on the Nintendo eShop. You can get huge deals, upwards of 70% off on some of the best anime and RPG games on the Nintendo Switch from Bandai Namco. So I wanted to quickly run down these games here and kind of talk about a few of them that I actually really like. So Dragon Ball Z Kakarot plus a new Power Awakened set, the Ultimate Edition, that's $42.49. You can get the base game for $29.99, and all of the DLC is also on sale. Next up, you have the Ni no Kuni games, Ni no Kuni 1, Wrath of the White Witch for $9.99, and Ni no Kuni 2, Revenant Kingdom Princess Edition for $29.99. Next up is Digimon Story Cyber Sleuth Complete Edition, which gets you both games and is a lot of great value and is a really good game, and that's only $14.99. Very good deal on that if you're looking for a cheap RPG to play with plenty of content and pretty good graphics. All things considered, check out Digimon Story Cyber Sleuth Complete Edition. Next up is the Eternal Dragon Ball FighterZ, the base version of it. That's $9.59, and you can pick up all of the different season passes on discount as well. Next up is one of my favorite, if not my favorite animes of all time, Naruto Ultimate Ninja Storm, the series, although that's not my favorite series when it comes to Naruto. I like the Clash of Ninja series more, but Ultimate Ninja Storm series, they're $4.99 each, with Naruto Ultimate Ninja Storm 4 Road to Boruto, that is $14.99. So get your Naruto on for a really cheap price. Now next up is Dragon Ball Xenoverse 2 for $7.49, which just has a millennia of content in there, and there's also discounts on the DLC packs for that game. Tales of Vesperia Definitive Edition for $9.99, which I highly recommend that. That's one of my favorite Tales games of all time, and I remember it very fondly on the Xbox 360, and now you get the enhanced version with all the content that was from like the PlayStation 3 and some nice little additions, and it looks and runs better than ever before. Next up is God Eater 3, which is one of the dark horses on here for the best game. It is a Monster Hunter style of game, and it's only $8.99. I do highly recommend it, and also there's a demo on the eShop if you want to test it out before you take the plunge. Next up is Sword Art Online Fatal Bullet Complete Edition for $8.99, and this might be the weakest RPG on here. However, it comes with a ton of content. Think like a futuristic Japanese Borderlands. That's kind of how I see Sword Art Online Fatal Bullet, but third person. It's still a solid game. I do like it. I played it quite a bit on PC and also the PlayStation 4, plus the Nintendo Switch a little bit as well. So I do think that it's solid. Some issues here and there, but for that price, you can't really go too wrong with it. And last but definitely not least, we have the My Hero One's Justice games. You can get the first game for $8.99 and the second game for $14.99, and they are arena fighters, but they're fun to play in short little spurts, and also they have online play in there as well, plus a bunch of the characters from the anime, and you can go through the story mode. You have online options. It's a nice little package for both of these games. So those are the games on sale. So are you planning on picking up any of these games? Let me know in the comment section below. All right, and moving on to the next topic here, guys. This is something that kind of irks me a little bit when it comes to what Reggie Fils-Aime had to say about Mother 3's localization, or the lack of the localization, I should say. And essentially he stated that the content in there wasn't the reason why that the game was never localized. So let's go ahead and get into this article here. Nintendo Everything is on the beat. So former Nintendo of America president Reggie Fils-Aime has once again chimed in on Mother 3, including how the game has never been localized. Reggie already said it this week that there were, quote, many conversations about the title and a possible Western launch. However, nothing ever materialized. Reggie suggested that an overseas release simply never made sense from a business perspective, but now we have further clarification. Now, some fans have speculated that the content of Mother 3 is why it has stayed in Japan. Controversial topics such as the critique of capitalism and characters that are gender ambiguous can be found in the game, for example. But Reggie told Bloomberg this in this new interview, quote, "That is not at all the issue why Mother 3 in particular never made it to the West. It was all based on the business needs and the business situation at the time. Although there's no sign of Nintendo bringing Mother 3 to North America and Europe anytime soon, the game has been in the news quite a bit recently. Earlier this year, the title's producer mentioned that he'd like to see it have an English release. I want to talk about this because this is something that kind of takes me back. I had a little bit of a flashback, almost like a mental moment ingrained back to 2010, 2011, 2012, in those years, and the attitude that Nintendo of America had and Reggie Fils-Aime had. And I like Nintendo just as much as the next person, but this, I can say without a doubt, was one of the most frustrating periods for myself as an RPG fan and as someone who likes these type of Japanese games, to where they deem that it's not worth the business. It's not worth localizing. You guys aren't important when it comes to the Japanese RPGs. No, don't worry about it. We're not going to do it. They said the same thing. That type of logic made it to where we almost didn't get Xenoblade here in the West, because Reggie and Nintendo of America just felt like Monolith Soft's efforts weren't good enough, or people wouldn't like it, or people wouldn't buy it, or they look at the sales in Japan for a bit and say, oh no, we can't do that, or we don't want to spend the money, or whatever it is. So when he says stuff like, oh, it's purely about business, I kind of say, well, wait a minute, how do you know exactly how it's going to turn out? Because if it was up to Nintendo of America, we would have never gotten Xenoblade Chronicles. We would have never gotten that game, or Pandora's Tower, or also The Last Story. They didn't even publish Pandora's Tower and The Last Story here in the US. Other people, other entities picked those games up. So I don't like the attitude that it's purely business. It's purely business when it's a GBA game. It makes absolute no sense, especially when they've brought over the original Earthbound or Mother and the second game with Earthbound. Like, what's the point of leaving that out? So the other two are profitable and makes business sense, but this one doesn't. It doesn't add up. Like, it really just doesn't add up, especially if you say at the time, you had a very long time period to do this. I mean, this game came out in 2006, right? It's around 2006, mid 2000s. So Reggie was there at Nintendo and everything. So for the decade plus he was there, it's like, oh, it doesn't make sense for every single year. I just don't buy this explanation. And like I said, I don't like it because it makes it seem as if these Japanese games that are kind of quirky, they're inferior and they don't deserve to be localized because nobody will buy it. But we've seen time and time again that that's not the case. The Last Story ended up being Xseed's best-selling game at the time. Pandora's Tower did solid for the type of game that it was. Xenoblade Chronicles turned into a big franchise for Nintendo now and selling millions of copies. So I don't like this attitude at all, and it ends up just killing the potential in games that are really good. So I really hope that this type of stuff doesn't happen going forward in the future, and so far we haven't seen it too much. For the most part, Nintendo releases all of their games that come out in Japan will come out here in the US, and it will have worldwide launches as well, as compared to how it was before on the 3DS and the Wii U and the Wii, where lots of stuff didn't come over, like Disaster Day of Crisis. He also stated that that game's not good enough for the Western market when it comes to Reggie Fils-Aime, pretty much just like brushing aside that game. So to me, I don't like this talk. It doesn't make sense to me, and I hope and I'm thinking that Nintendo has moved on from this type of stuff. But we'll have to wait and see if Mother 3 itself actually gets localized, because it's been so long and people do want the game. I think right now it's become like such a weird and old and tired meme that they should just do it at this point. I don't think it's going to break the bank, especially since there's already localizations available that the people that made the localization stated like, hey, you can use this free of charge, and it's a really good localization. So I don't really know what's going on here, but once again, I don't like the attitude, and I'm glad that we're moving past this type of thing to where we can get games like Xenoblade, we can get games like Bravely Default, we can get all these type of smaller RPGs that aren't the blockbusters, that are kind of quirky and different, and we can get those and not have to worry about having a localization or it coming out a year or 2 years later like the original Xenoblade did here in the US. It doesn't make sense to do that, and we've proven, Nintendo fans have proven, that we will buy these type of RPGs. So I don't like it, but we'll see what happens in the future with Mother 3 and of course with more of these RPG games. So what are your thoughts on everything that we discussed here? Let me know in the comment section below. All right, guys, that wraps it up for this video here. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, click that notification bell, and we will see you for the next video. Peace.